One question we got from Aaron Action RPG, a fellow content creator over here, wants to know Falconer or Warlock. What do you like, Mike?
I will be starting.
Hello everyone and welcome to Action RPG. I'm your host Aaron, and for today's video we're headed to the world of Last Epoch. Mike, one of the senior developers at 11th Hour Games, was a special guest on Tavern Talk, a podcast hosted by Gazzy and Darth Microtransaction, where he just went lightning round answering for 2 hours straight questions about Last Epoch. So I get to bring you Dev Chat Tavern Talk Edition. And we're going to be starting off right at the beginning with factions and how the currency is going to work. I like the way Mike answered this question.
The news at the moment, when it comes to trade and item factions, one of the questions I saw, which I believe was answered in the video, but I just want to make sure we're correct on this because I'm seeing this question all the time, is that when it comes to the market and trading, the currency that you use to actually do the trading, is that faction reputation currency, or is that only a fee associated with having to post, for instance, a marketplace posting? Could you maybe give us a little bit more deep dive into trading?
Mike's got this.
Factions?
Yeah, definitely, for sure. There's actually 3 things going on in total with the factions, or specifically with the trade faction. So Merchant's Guild, the primary currency that you're going to use to trade with is gold. That's what you post something up and you say, this is how much gold I want for this item. When you go to buy something, you say, this is how much gold I'm spending to buy this thing. That's the thing you're getting in exchange for the item is gold every single time. The second thing that you mentioned was reputation, and reputation is actually the reward for trading. It's not the cost.
How you level up.
So reputation is what you get out of completing a trade. And that's how you progress into higher ranks of your faction. The other currency item is, it's not really currency, but the other resource is favor. And favor is something that you earn by playing the game while you're representing one of the factions. And so while you're representing Merchant's Guild and you just go out, you complete quests, you kill monsters, you do echoes, you do dungeons, anything you're doing earns you favor. And there will be a favor cost associated with interacting with your faction in any way. So if you're buying something, if you're selling something, that costs favor to take those actions. But favor's not being exchanged, so it's not really the currency you're trading with.
Okay, got it. So you earn the favor by doing the thing, and the thing being, for instance, in Trade League would be trading, obviously, and then once you have the favor, you use that to interact with the different factions. Am I hearing this correctly? I'm trying to process.
Close. So you earn favor by killing monsters.
Okay, so
Yeah, that's it. That's just, like you.
By running echoes. Moving on to Respeccing Masteries.
On the question, besides the faction, the possibility of Respeccing Masteries. Right now, for those of you who are unaware, when you choose character, you can choose a different type of masteries. But after you've locked in your mastery on that character, you are currently unable to change that. So is this something that you are going to be able to respec? Yes or no, and why?
Right now, for all I'm going to talk about for this answer is for 1.0. Right now, it's no. You will not be able to respec your mastery. That is locked in. Once you pick your mastery, that's done. When you do it, there's a big warning box that shows up in big red letters, like, this is permanent. You're not changing it. Sorry. And there's a bit of I guess I don't know, a fear of like messing up your character that goes into that with some people. And there's 2 points that 2 angles that people come at wanting to change this. It's that like, what if I mess up my character? That sort of fear. And we really try really hard to make sure that every mastery can have fun and tackle endgame and really get stuff done and do what you need to do. And maybe the people that want to push like really, really hard into the super endgame where only the absolute top tier builds will even be possible to compete with, they're not going to have any problem making a second character and just rolling another mastery. Like that process is short enough that we think it's not going to really have a huge impact on those players because
I'll stop you right there, Mike. And yeah, alts are so easy to make once you have leveling gear. It is my opinion you will never be able to change your mastery. Obviously, things can change in the future, but I think they are pretty hard stance that is a permanent decision. This next question and answer is a little longer, but I've never heard Mike talk in depth about hardcore.
My questions here. one of which is about hardcore. So I know it's an option in the game. There's a very hardcore community, if you excuse the pun. And when it comes to the design philosophy of the game, how do you integrate hardcore into the game? Is this something that every time you create new content, you're balancing around it, or is hardcore you're sort of saying, well, this is an extra challenge. You yourself are asserting upon yourself, and good luck with the game. It's balanced around the core fundamental gameplay. How do you design a brand new game from the game up while both balancing hardcore as well as the core side of the gameplay?
Yeah, it is something that we keep in mind very frequently when we're designing enemies, players' abilities, items, all sorts of things. There's tons of little things that we do take hardcore into account for when we're designing them, for sure. Like there's times we've been talking about, for example, passives. There's some passives where we're like chance-based cheat death passives, where we're like, well, no one in hardcore is going to take that, because it's not reliable, so there's no point in having it type thing. And there's like some defense. It's a lot of times it's defensive mechanics and passives that we're talking about now. We're like, this is not for hardcore players because we know they're not going to take it, and we try and still design ways for them to build their character without needing to take those. And so yeah, like sometimes it's in the way we design boss fights. We try to make them learn well, and this is something that goes for not just hardcore as well, because we want players that are sometimes getting through challenges and getting to a pivotal moment where if you die, you have to start all over again. We still want to be able to teach them how to interact with those mechanics. And sometimes we don't do a great job of this, and we are working on improving those still. But and new bosses when we're designing them. There was one recently that we were talking about where like there's a mechanic you have to dodge basically, and if you fail to dodge it too many times, it's eventually going to kill you. But the first few, it's just teaching you that you got to dodge this type thing.
I love that.
And that's sort of that slow ramp up in teaching you how to play the boss fights. And so yeah, we do definitely look at hardcore when we're designing mechanics in the game. I kind of went all over the place there, but
no, that's a good answer. Do you find that just to follow up on this, and I'll pass it to guys, I think I have another question sort of in the same vein here, is do you find that hardcore as a concept from a development side either strives you to improve the game, or does it feel more of like a limiting aspect of the game where, okay, well, we're trying to build a game, but we got to make sure that it's viable for hardcore too? Do you find this to be a difficult challenge to overcome, or do you find it something that at the end of the day tends to improve your game?
I think it improves the game overall. I think that I think it's both. I think it is a challenge, and it is difficult sometimes to make work. But I think it makes the game better in the long run, which is what you want, right? Like, just because it's easy doesn't make it good.
And if you don't know this, Mike actually really enjoys hardcore. Length of cycle.
Just stuff you can go for if you want, but like, oh, I don't have an extra 10 hours to go for that, so I'm just I'll pass on that for this cycle or something like that. Maybe just can't quite finish it in time. And I think we also have to be mindful that a huge percentage of our audience is also interested in playing other games that are offering similar cyclical content, with PoE and D4 and D3 and D2R and Torchlight and Grim Dawn. Like there's a ton of other games out there that are pulling attention at the same sort of like new content getting dropped really frequently. So we kind of have to be aware that not everyone's going to stick around for the whole cycle every single time, and give them an opportunity to have fun and really engage with the content, but still have enough to sink their teeth into if they don't want to go to those other games as well. And it's a very difficult balancing act to walk. And our very first cycle is really focused on getting our core game out and just having those core features solid and fun and all that sort of stuff. And we're gonna look at getting into these more I guess like PoE standard cycle or like PoE League type style mechanics a little bit in the future here.
Okay. Are we talking 3 months, 4 months, half a year cycles, or what are we looking at on the terms of length there?
Yeah, I can't give you like a specific number here, but I can say it'll feel similar to what you're expecting from other games as well.
I can't say because honestly, I don't know, but I would guess that they're going to go back to their old format, which is maximum 4 months, but I would guess 3.5 months. You will get a new cycle from 11th Hour Games. Now let's talk melee and ranged classes.
Team approach the concept of melee versus ranged, and we can go all the way back to MMOs. This is a fundamental question in game design. Melee is at a disadvantage because the ranged guy can hit you from far away. So how are you guys approaching that in an ARPG in order to give melee a fighting chance?
That's a good question.
Usually we try to give, and I know as soon as I say this, people will be like, well, that's not the way it is. I'm like, yeah, and it's not perfect. This is what we try and do. We usually try to give melee classes more defensive options.
Okay, I am going to stop Mike right there for a second. I'm sorry. Rune Master is ranged and it has so many defensive options, which is fine. Rune Master is awesome, but that's probably what he's talking about.
Sometimes those are just passives or skills that reflect that ability. An example of that being like we give abilities like Rebuke to Sentinel, which is generally mostly a melee class, has ranged options, but is primarily melee. And it's an ability that you can just tank almost everything in the game with it. And we try and give those more defensive options to classes that are generally in melee situations. Sometimes we'll give defensive options to melee offensive abilities, like Vengeance on Sentinel again, which gives you ways to sort of offset that difference of not having to, like being in melee range. And then the other half of this is or we'll give them higher mobility options. So Rogue is like a Blade Dancer anyways, is primarily a melee class, and we try and give them lots of mobility options so that they are able to reposition themselves in combat really efficiently, and not lose too much damage as they're doing it. Sometimes those are just like little hops while they're still attacking. Sometimes those are just low cooldown movement abilities, things like that. We also do look at boss design as well, because that's where it really stands out. I think for the most part is boss design, or boss encounters. Sorry, and we have the ability in our AI system to say, okay, like this is here's a list of abilities that the boss can do, and this ability they can't target within a certain range. So it's like they'll only use this ability if someone's at range, or they'll only use this ability if someone's at melee. And so we can actually change which abilities they're using based on how far you are from the boss. And so sometimes we'll maybe give the same ability, but it goes off a little faster if you're at range. So you'll actually have to dodge a little bit more actively if you're farther away or something like that.
I also love that. Guilds.
Pretty much all ARPGs that I can think of, or most of them, have a guild function. Yet there is very little impact or benefit or even purpose behind the guild functions, other than, hey, you now have access to a little, tag in your name and another chat channel to chat with your friends in. What's the plans with guilds moving forward for Last Epoch?
Yeah, so you literally said, as soon as you start talking about guilds, I'm like, well, that's exactly what I'm going to say. And you said exactly what I was going to say about how the conclusion we came to of what a guild system would look like in Last Epoch. It would be a tag by your name and a private chat channel. And while there's not like there's value in that, and we do know that players want to have that, and there's good things to have there, it's not enough value to take time away from other development processes right now for us to add something like that. We do really like the idea of having a guild system, and we think that those buildings of communities inside of games is really valuable. Like I'm still friends with a couple people that I was in WoW guilds with, what was it, 12, 13 years ago or something. So we don't want to discount that at all. And I would be surprised if we never introduce a guild system to Last Epoch. I would really like to see, and I know we've discussed this internally, we really like to see some sort of mechanic to go with it, some extra thing to do, some reason to have guilds there, to make it feel just a little bit more, and at the same time not being mandatory to join that guild to play in games, something like that, because we know we don't want people to feel left out of playing the game if they don't join a guild, but we do want people to feel like there's some sort of activity to do, or maybe not activity is a bad word, but just reason to compete with other guilds, or maybe a guild ladder or something. I don't know how that would look exactly, but just something a little bit more than a tag in a chat channel. Yeah.
Mark my words. LE will have guilds. I think they're going to call them clans in the future. And it's probably, I would guess 2025 on that one. I don't think there is a day that goes by that either on stream or on Discord or someone from my community reaches out and says, I am so excited for Last Epoch 1.0, but I am terrified the servers are not going to work.
When it comes to server stability on game launch, this is something that is always like people sit in a queue and, you know, I rage over it and all that. How are you guys worried about, or are you worried at all about server stability? It seems like you guys got a lot of interest in the game. Every time that I'm streaming, people bring up the game. So it seems like there's a lot of both press about it as well as interest on it. So how are you tackling server stability come launch?
Great question.
I think if a small part of us wasn't worried about it a little bit, we'd be foolish.
Sure.
We've been like, this has been we know this has been coming. We've all been around for all the launches of every big ARPG in the last 20 years. You know, like there's I've sat through every ARPG launch since PoE type thing. Like we know how these go. We are doing everything we can to make sure this is as smooth as possible, and we know that there's it's likely not going to be perfect. We're doing our best to make it perfect, but we don't know what's going to happen until launch day comes around. We've got we've got tons of we have third-party partners for different services that we use, and they all know when our launch day is. They've got people standing by ready to help us when we need it. Everyone is like, no one has time off scheduled for this time. Like we're ready to go for getting this built and out the door as best we can. Like this is a huge deal for us, and we are putting everything we have behind this launch. If there are problems, we are going to react to them as quickly as possible. We do kind of have this.
He goes into you can play in offline mode, which most people don't like. I mean, people love offline mode, but for launch, you know, they want to get into the main game. I'm so excited. I've been able to play the launch version of the game, and I can tell you, when you get your hands on it, you're gonna love it. All right, everyone, unfortunately, we have come to the final question for Dev Chat Tavern Talk Edition. And honestly, the person that asked this question, I don't know what his problem is. I think there's something wrong upstairs, but it will all make sense. But it is a perfect transition. Before I get out of here, we are less than 7 days away from Warlock Week. Exclusively on this YouTube channel, Action RPG and Icy Veins, I will be showcasing the general overview of the Warlock, a breakdown of the passive tree, and all 5 skills. 7 days of Warlock. It's going to be absolutely awesome. I'm already recording content. Tune in next Thursday, Warlock Week. Enjoy this final question from this crazy guy.
One question we got from Aaron Action RPG, a fellow content creator over here, wants to know Falconer or Warlock. What do you like, Mike?
I will be starting Falconer myself. It's the class that it's got near dear to my heart. It's what I'm starting with. It's what I'm working on right now. But Warlock is it's a close second actually, and I see Kazi was a little
disappointment here.
Sorry. Don't get my answer as anything against Warlock or not thinking it's going to be awesome, because it is really going to be awesome. I am very excited for how Warlock's going to shake out. And it's going to be a really fun class to play. Visually, I actually think Warlock's better. I prefer the visuals that we've got for Warlock. But the gameplay feel that we've got for Falconer is I don't know. It's that, yeah. There's a lot of mobility stuff in Rogue in general that I really like, and I'm a big fan of that. I just love having that high mobility on the class.